Hey everyone, welcome to Orb Creations, the show where I build an app, you get to see how I do it, and you get the source code in the description. Today we're building a math app. In case you didn't get your math homework done, this app will be a great tool to help you brush up on addition, subtraction, and even multiplication. The overall structure of this math app is pretty straightforward. Just like any math problem, we need a question and an answer. Firstly, we need to generate a question that we can display to the user. Then, we need to be able to evaluate that question to have an internal representation of the answer so we can check if the user's input is correct. We also need a handler to generate new questions if the user skips or correctly guesses an answer. Let's go create the hooks for this. First, we'll initialize the question to a string. Then we'll want to define the handler to generate a new question and call the handler inside a useEffect hook when the page loads to display a question to the user. To actually generate the question, we'll generate a random integer between -100 and 100. The utility function we define just lets us set a min and max value to bound our random numbers. Then we want to randomly choose an operator. We'll display addition, subtraction, and multiplication questions. We won't do division here because the user might get decimals, and we don't really want to handle the logic for that in this app. Finally, we'll concatenate everything together using a template string. If the second number is negative, we'll want to display parentheses around it to improve readability for the question. Both the question and answer components will use buttons, so we'll take a second and define a button component as a wrapper quickly. We'll also apply some styles so our buttons can be styled consistently across the app. The question component will simply render the question and a skip button. On click, the skip button will call the handler we passed it in the parent component. Question is a dumb component that just takes props and renders or calls them. The one modification that we have to make to the question is to replace the operator. JavaScript eval understands the asterisk symbol to be multiplication, but we want to display an actual multiplication symbol to users on the screen. And the operator map constant will help us do that. The answer component is just a form where the user can input numbers, so we'll structure it as any other form, with an input, a label, and a button. We'll need to define a check function to check if the user got the answer right on submit. We'll also need the state we want to bind to the input and a handler to perform state updates when the user enters a new answer. We'll define all of this in our hooks file. First, we'll use a useState hook to hold the user's answer. Then, we'll define the handler we'll use to update that answer when the user enters values into the input. Finally, our check handler will compare the user's input against the answer. If the answer is correct, we'll display the next question, and if the answer is incorrect, we'll let the user know as well. And there you have it, a math app. The app is currently hosted on Orb at math.orbapps.com, link in the description. All of the code that goes into this app is linked in the description. Be sure to check out the other videos on your screen right now. YouTube doesn't tell me ahead of time what they are, but I'm sure they're great. If you want to stay up to date on new apps we're building and coding tips and tricks, be sure to demolish that subscribe button and follow us everywhere else. Until next time, remember, half of the time, math is very odd.